in different parts of the country was the biggest headline in media for many weeks together. And then the COVID pandemic arrived, and then CAA went onto the back burner, and now it's back just weeks before the Lok Sabha election after 4 years in cold storage. And as you can expect, politics over CAA has escalated. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has stoked a big controversy today by saying that rape riots will increase after CAA implementation. Kejriwal's comments didn't go down well, obviously, with the BJP and Sikh refugees who slammed him for calling refugee Sikhs rapists. The opposition has been gunning for the centre, calling CAA an anti-Muslim law. Watch this full report.
पता नहीं वो कौन लोग हैं, क्या हैं, सारी कानून व्यवस्था चरमरा जाएगी, चोरियां, डकैतियां, बलात्कार बढ़ेंगे हमारे देश के अंदर.
Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal predicting disruptive fallout of CAA, predicting flood of Pakistanis, rape, riots and dacoity.
बांग्लादेश से, पाकिस्तान से अगर झुग्गी लगा के आपके पता नहीं वो कौन लोग हैं, क्या हैं, सारी कानून व्यवस्था चरमरा जाएगी, चोरियां, डकैतियां, बलात्कार बढ़ेंगे हमारे देश के अंदर, पूरी कानून व्यवस्था. और पता नहीं कैसे कैसे लोग आएंगे वहां पे. सुरक्षा व्यवस्था, हमारे देश की सुरक्षा व्यवस्था का क्या होगा? चारों तरफ दंगे फैल जाएंगे. ये क्यों लाए हैं कानून?
Kejriwal's CAA rape analogy made the BJP see red. It launched a tirade asking Kejriwal to stop painting Hindu and Sikh migrants as criminals.
भाई अरविंद केजरीवाल जी, ना हम बलात्कारी हैं, ना हम लुटेरे हैं. हम वही हैं अरविंद केजरीवाल जी जो कोविड में आप हमारे को हाथ जोड़ जोड़ के कहते थे लंगर भेजो. हम वही हैं अरविंद केजरीवाल जी जिनको हाथ जोड़कर कहते थे रकाबगंज के अंदर हॉस्पिटल बना दो, ऑक्सीजन दे दो. हम वही हैं, हम बलात्कारी नहीं हैं. हम तो लोगों की जान बचाने वाले लोग हैं. एक घटिया बयान अरविंद केजरीवाल जी को वापस लेना चाहिए.
The Sikh migrants who fled Taliban atrocities in Afghanistan and Pakistan were upset too. Sikh refugees asked Kejriwal not to tag them as rapists and asserted that they can die for dignity of women.
उनको कह रहा है जो गुरु नानक का सिख पगड़ीधारी है, मेरे को एक बता दो कि किसी डकैती में, किसी बलात्कारी में, किसी उसमें इन्वॉल्व हुआ हो.
मजलूम की रक्षा करना हमारा सिखों का फर्ज है. केजरीवाल जी कहना हमारा इतिहास पढ़े, शायद पढ़ा नहीं होगा उन्होंने.
Team India, however, has been relentlessly training guns on the centre, calling CAA an anti-Muslim law.
हम क्या को पसंद नहीं करते इसी के लिए. उसमें जो 5 कम्युनिटी को रख दिया, मुस्लिम को निकाल दिया, जैसे हिंदुस्तान में वो लोगों का कोई कंट्रीब्यूशन नहीं है.
एका बाजूला भाजपा आहे जो धर्माधर्मामध्ये द्वेष पसरवतो आहे, घटना बदल करू इच्छितो आहे, आणि दुसऱ्या बाजूला इंडिया नावाची आपली जी आघाडी झाली ती देशभक्तांची आघाडी आहे.
It will only give citizenship to those who do not belong to the Islamic faith and who belong to the other faiths. Any law which differentiates people on faith is not acceptable and it is discriminatory.
AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi too attacked CAA.
ये कानून जो मोदी सरकार ने आज से 4 साल पहले बनाया था वो संविधान के खिलाफ है. आप रिलीजन की बुनियाद पर कानून नहीं बना सकते.
Home Minister Amit Shah has rejected claims of bias and said India will not abandon persecuted minorities in its neighborhood.
लाखों करोड़ों लोग पाकिस्तान से और बांग्लादेश से अपना धर्म बचाने के लिए, अपना सम्मान बचाने के लिए इस देश में आए. उनको नागरिकता नहीं मिलती थी. अपने ही देश में वो नागरिकता के बगैर अपमानित होते थे. नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने हिंदू, बौद्ध, जैन, ये सारे सिख, ये सारे लोगों को नागरिकता देकर उनका सम्मान करने का काम नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने.
Will the escalating CAA showdown dominate the political discourse in the run-up to 2024 polls? Bureau Report, India Today.
A speech by the current Chief Justice of India's son and an advocate in his own right, Abhinav Chandrachud's 2020 statement on the Citizenship Amendment Act has started going viral on social media afresh. It's a comment from 2020, mind you, but it's been revived now and it's been shared very, very widely on the internet. India Today also spoke to one of India's best-known lawyers, Harish Salve, on the other side, the counter view. Listen to both these takes, very, very important. One in 2020, one today.
If Hindus, Christians, Jains, Sikhs, who were a large part of the population of Pakistan, have post its becoming a theocratic state, felt a sense of alienation, and if they want to come to India, it's logical that India gives them citizenship. And that's what we have done.
One of the arguments is that it excludes certain categories of religious groups. It excludes Jews. I'm not able to understand why Jews have been left out from the Citizenship Amendment Act. And on social media, when I posted a paper that I'd written, somebody said, well, Jews have Israel. Okay? But we have one of my very good friends is a Jew in Calcutta. Jews also have India. And if Jews have Israel, then Christians and Buddhists have their own countries too. We've included Christians and Buddhists, but we've left out Jews. That doesn't make sense to me. What about Baha'is? Baha'is have no country of their own. We've left out Baha'is. You've left out atheists, people who believe that there is no God.
Our constitution guarantees equal protection of Indian laws to all Indians. Can an English person come and say, why are you giving visas to the French? Why not to me? How am I different? Can the Chinese today complain saying it's not fair? People from Thailand are given visas. People from other Asian countries are given visas. Why not us?
The residence requirement in India is reduced by the Citizenship Amendment Act. So anyone else who wants to apply to be a citizen by naturalization has to reside in India for 11 years. But for somebody who falls within the Citizenship Amendment Act, the residence requirement is only 5 years. Now, what really perplexes me is that look how this applies to the group that we all know as Parsis. Parsis originally fled Iran. There are still Parsis who live in Iran under circumstances that one might consider to be very repressive. A Parsi who flees religious persecution in Iran and comes to India has to wait 11 years to be naturalized as a citizen. But a Parsi who flees religious persecution in Afghanistan has to wait in India for only 5 years to be a naturalized citizen. That doesn't make any sense.
And we've got breaking news concerning Mission 2024. This is the BJP's Karnataka candidate list that India Today's political bureau in Karnataka has scooped. Sources telling India Today that this is the BJP's seat plan for Bengaluru. Bengaluru South, the ticket goes to Tejasvi Surya. Bengaluru Central, PC Mohan. Both of them are sitting MPs. Bengaluru Rural, Dr. Manjunath. Udupi Chikmagalur to Kota Srinivas Pujari. Chikkodi to Anna Sahib Jole. Bidar to Bhagwant Kuba. Gulbarga to Umesh Jadhav. Bellari to Sri Ramalu. Tumkur to Somanna. Dharwad to Union Minister Prahlad Joshi. Bagalkot to Gaddigauda. Bijapur Ramesh Jigajinagi. And Bengaluru North to the Udupi Chikmagalur sitting MP Shobha Karanlaje. So some movement, some new faces, some people have been dropped and some people have been brought on board. Let's bring in India Today's Nagarjun Dwarkanath for more on this big scoop from Karnataka. Nagarjun, big takeaways from this list. Break it down for us.
Shiv, the biggest takeaway is former Chief Minister, former Union Minister Sadananda Gowda losing his ticket. As we speak, he has just tweeted on his social media platforms or posted on the social media platforms thanking all the voters of Bangalore North constituency for voting him for the last 10 years and giving him an opportunity to be in the cabinet to work with the Prime Minister, which means he has conceded defeat in giving his seat to Shobha Karanlaje. Seems like he has got a call or a hint from the High Command that he has to vacate his seat or being dropped, if I have to just put it plainly. Another big takeaway is Dr. Manjunath, who is the director, who was the director till recently of Jaideva Cardiac Institute, which is a very well-known heart institute which takes place surgery, works for the poor. It's a government institute. He will be contesting from BJP symbol, BJP party against DK Suresh, brother of DK Shiv Kumar, who's been a 3-time MP, and Kota Srinivas Pujari, who will replace Shobha Karandlaje in Udupi Chikmagalur district. He's a bill of OBC face. These are the big three takeaways, but the remaining seats, PC Gadigowda continues in Bagalkot, Bidar Bhagwant Kuba continues, even though there's a lot of backlash, but they don't want to touch Lingayats, OBCs as well as the Dalits, because they feel that what happened in the assembly elections by removing Lakshman Saudi and Jagdish Shettar, there was backlash. They don't want to have the same repercussions now. The final point of contention is for Jagdish Shettar and Mr. Basavaraj Bommai. The Prime Minister will take a call if they have to contest from Belgaum and Gadag and Haveri.
Okay, very interesting. So Sadanand Gowda, former Chief Minister, dropped, like Naga just reported, he's put out on social media, a message basically thanking his constituents. It's like a goodbye message in effect. And you can see on your screen the scoop that Nagarjun has put together. All of those names, our sources are telling us, are going to be on the BJP ticket in those respective seats. Make note of that, because we are always right about these things. Naga, like you said, suspense over Basavaraj Bommai, Jagdish Shettar. There has been some noise over Pratap Simha as well in the Mysuru seat. What are you hearing about that? There's been some buzz over, whether he could be dropped as well.
Well, the CEC has decided to drop him, but he has requested the Prime Minister that he has done, these are the works that he has done for the constituency, and the party, if at all, can consider one final push in front of the Prime Minister's table. Pratap Simha has done, but 99.9% what we are told is his name is being dropped, because the CEC has completely agreed and they've come to terms that Pratap Simha will be dropped from Mysore parliamentary and Kodagu parliamentary seat. Behalf of him, there will be a royal descendant, Mr. Yaduvir Vodayar, who is presently the so-called king of the Mysore kingdom. He will be the candidate for the BJP, is what we are told. In the next 8 hours, if the Prime Minister will decide the fate of Pratap Simha, but the CEC has decided to drop Pratap Simha from Mysore.
Are these names that you've reported right now, Naga, when are they likely to be finalized and announced? We are waiting on that second list of the BJP. Are you hearing it could be out sometime today? Because that's what we're hearing from here in Delhi as well. And B, what about the other, Karnataka seats, the remaining seats?
The remaining seats, there is a bit of confusion, because there's at least party wants one candidate, Sangh wants one candidate, the High Command wants another candidate. So there's a bit of discussion going on for the remaining 8 to 9 seats, because you also have to take a couple of seats JDS into consideration, because it's an NDA alliance. So a couple of seats also they have to discuss with Deve Gowda and family. So that's also still yet to happen. But like you mentioned, the other seats are completely confirmed. The CEC might has confirmed the list, but the list might not come out today, is what we are told. Might be in the morning, because the Prime Minister still has to decide on the 6 seats. Like I said, Basavaraj Bommai, Jagdish Shettar. 19 seats is what CEC discussed and confirmed, but one final stamp of the Prime Minister is yet to be given for the 6 seats, and hence there's a delay in terms of putting out the list for Karnataka.
Okay, very interesting. You heard it here first on India Today. Going to continue to report on that story tonight or tomorrow morning, more likely, is when that list will be out. Naga and his team will be on the front, bringing you the very latest and a confirmation, remember, of this big scoop. We're taking a very quick break here on 5 Live. On the other side, we're going to be decoding something that happened yesterday. The first ever crash of an Indian Tejas fighter aircraft. What does it mean? What are the implications? And much more with 2 of India's biggest aviation experts. That's next.
Weeks before India heads into crucial general elections, and 4 years after it was passed in the Parliament, the Modi government has notified rules for the Citizenship Amendment Act. CAA grants Indian citizenship to refugees who came to India before December 31st, 2014 on religious grounds. It covers 3 neighbouring countries, Afghanistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh, and includes 6 minority communities: Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis and Christians. While the government has assured that CAA will not take away citizenship of any Indian citizen, Mamata Banerjee was the first to oppose the law. Other opposition parties are also questioning the timing of CAA implementation. The Ministry of Home Affairs has created a web portal for CAA, and all application will have to be submitted online. Bureau Report, India Today.
टीआरएस, कांग्रेस दोनों मजलिस से निजाम के प्रभाव से तेलंगाना को मुक्त कर सकते हैं क्या? ये दोनों मजलिस के एजेंडा पर चलते हैं। ये दोनों पार्टियां हैदराबाद स्थापना दिन मना सकती है क्या? जोर से बोलो, मना सकती है क्या? सरदार पटेल का सम्मान कर सकती है क्या? हमने कहा था हम सीएए लाएंगे। आजादी के वक्त से कांग्रेस पार्टी और हमारे संविधान निर्माताओं का वादा था कि बांग्लादेश, अफगानिस्तान और पाकिस्तान से जो शरणार्थी आएंगे, जो वहां की प्रताड़ना झेल कर आएंगे, उसको हम नागरिकता देंगे। मगर तुष्टीकरण की, वोट बैंक की राजनीति के कारण कांग्रेस पार्टी इसका विरोध करती थी। कांग्रेस पार्टी, आप देखिए, जवाहरलाल नेहरू, इंदिरा गांधी, राजीव गांधी, सोनिया गांधी, अब राहुल गांधी, आगे भगवान जाने कौन गांधी। ये केसीआर के बाद केटीआर, केटीआर केसीआर, केसीआर केटीआर, और बड़े मियां तो बड़े मियां, छोटे मियां भी सुभान अल्लाह। ये मजलिस भी परिवारवादी पार्टी है। ये तीनों पार्टियों का लक्ष्य राजनीति में अपने बेटे बेटों का कल्याण करना है, बेटों बेटियों का कल्याण करना है।
Celebrations and protest. The centre notified the law to expedite citizenship for non-Muslim minorities from Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. Passed in 2019, the CAA amends the 64-year-old law that barred illegal migrants from gaining Indian citizenship. The Modi administration seals a significant promise ahead of the general elections. But the move, praised by the ruling BJP and the potential beneficiaries of the amended law, sparked strong opposition reactions. The opposition camp called it an election tactic to polarize voters before the Lok Sabha elections. West Bengal's Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee denounced the CAA notification as a divisive maneuver. In the south, Tamil Nadu and Kerala governments declared they won't enforce a CAA in their states. Maharashtra's opposition parties rejected the CAA notification, labelling it an election ploy. Congress and the National Conference echoed similar concerns. The Aam Aadmi Party criticized the notification, citing it as an example of the Modi government's skewed priorities. The BJP government vehemently defended the new law. The CAA becomes a rallying point for the opposition, uniting them against the government ahead of the Lok Sabha polls on this issue. Bureau Report, India Today.
The CAA is an unwanted law. It aims to give citizenship to persecuted refugees who come from 3 specific countries, Bangladesh, Pakistan and Afghanistan, who have come to India before 2019. But the twist in the tail is that it will only give citizenship to those who do not belong to the Islamic faith and who belong to the other faiths. Any law which differentiates people on faith is not acceptable and it is discriminatory. And if the India bloc comes to government, we will definitely revoke this law.
तो बहुत पुराना कानून था, इसको चुनाव की आचार संहिता से ठीक पहले लाया गया है। मुझे खुशी होती है अगर ये सरकार एमएसपी पे कानून लेके आती है, ये सरकार नरेगा की तरह कोई रोजगार संबंधी कानून लेके आती है, जन कल्याण का ऐसा कोई कानून लेके आती है, हम उसका स्वागत करते हैं। देखिए, कोई भी काम अगर जनता के हित में होता है, तो सरकार कोई भी हो उसको हम अप्रिशिएट करते हैं। लेकिन ये जो किया गया है ठीक पूर्व संध्या पे चुनाव के, ये कहीं ना कहीं इसमें ध्रुवीकरण करने की कोशिश मैं समझता हूँ केंद्र सरकार की रही है।
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Viewer, 5 years ago, I had the distinct privilege of getting into the cockpit and flying in India's very own homegrown light combat aircraft Tejas. Now, Tejas is an incredible piece of engineering. It's India's very own fighter aircraft. It's been in combat service for the last 8 years, and the Indian Air Force loves it. And I can tell you that it was an incredible experience flying with an Indian Air Force warfighter, an air warrior, flying me in a Tejas, getting the full experience of what this amazing aircraft and its capabilities are really about. But what I'm here to discuss today on 5 Live is something a little less pleasant, because on Tuesday, that's yesterday, the Tejas aircraft suffered what was its first ever accident. After 23 years of flight, after 8 years in squadron service, the Tejas, which has had an amazing safety record, unfortunately suffered a crash. The pilot survived, thankfully, and there was no damage done on the ground, but the aircraft has been lost. In the wake of this milestone first crash of the light combat aircraft Tejas, there are a lot of rumors, a lot of buzz, a lot of myths and a lot of propaganda about what this crash really means. First, watch this report, and then on this show, I have 2 of India's finest aviation analysts and experts to take us through some of the big questions that you and me may have. First, watch the report. The pilot ejects and the fighter cruises towards the ground. Not just any fighter crash, but the first accident involving India's homegrown Tejas fighter jet. The Tejas, part of the Indian Air Force's Flying Bullets Squadron, was participating in the Bharat Shakti exercise in Pokhran, crashing into a thankfully empty hostel building in Jaisalmer, Rajasthan. The pilot thankfully safe after his successful ejection. The first crash of India's own fighter is undoubtedly unfortunate, but there's no reason for any tragic chest beating. For starters, the Tejas has had one of the finest safety records of any aircraft ever built. Tuesday's crash comes 8 years after the jet began operational squadron service, and 23 years after the jet took its first flight back in 2001. Military aviation is an inherently risky enterprise, and accidents can and will happen. But none of that takes away from the Tejas as a formidable light combat aircraft. 6 months after he strapped into a Tejas, becoming the first Indian Prime Minister to do so, Modi had this to say on Tuesday.
बीते 10 वर्षों में भारत ने अपना लड़ाकू हवाई जहाज बनाया है। भारत ने अपना एयरक्राफ्ट कैरियर बनाया है। अब 5th जनरेशन लड़ाकू विमान भी हम भारत में ही डिजाइन, डेवलप और मैन्युफैक्चर करने वाले हैं।
It is unclear what caused Tuesday's crash. A detailed investigation will take weeks to make an assessment. It's possible there was an engine flame out, with the aircraft too low for reignition and recovery. It could have been some other technical fault, which only a probe will reveal. What's clear is that the Tejas is here to stay. With nearly 40 in service and a further 180 of an improved version in the pipeline, Tuesday's crash is but a bump in a big journey ahead. Bureau Report, India Today. Now, viewer, remember that military aviation is a risky business. These are maneuvers and these are operations often conducted at the extremes of physics and engineering, and therefore accidents can and will happen. It's not the first time that an aircraft has crashed, but the reason why this particular accident has generated a greater degree of scrutiny and attention and media spotlight is because it's the first crash of India's very own light combat aircraft Tejas, and as a result of that, there are lots of rumors, lots of myths that this gives us an occasion to bust and explore a little deeper. I'm joined, have the greatest privilege to be joined by Air Marshal Anil Chopra. He's Director General of the Centre for Air Power Studies. He's a former fighter pilot. He's also been in charge of the Air Force's safety wing. So he knows a thing not just about fighter pilots, fighter aviation, flying fighters and ejecting from fighters, but also what it takes to investigate air accidents. Also our favorite aviation writer, researcher and someone who's been coming out with amazing books and articles about aviation in the years gone by, Angad Singh. To both of you, very much thanks for being with me and giving us your time. This is a sensitive issue. Air Marshal Chopra, I'll start with you. You're someone who actually holds the distinction of being, I think, the oldest pilot who's ejected from a fighter. So you know what it's like to actually escape from a fighter that has crashed. You've been in the cockpit, you've been behind a desk investigating crashes as well. So my opening question to you, sir, is how do you see this particular crash? It's the first crash of the LCA Tejas.
Shiv, I must say that LCA has been an outstanding aircraft. In 2002, I took over the aircraft systems and testing establishment.
Yes.
Watched the LCA's initial induction very, very closely and subsequently in service. Outstanding record, 8 years of operational service, 23 years of since first flight, first accident. And mind you, all programs in the world, F-35, we have lost more than 10. F-35, we have lost more than 4. The JF-17, some of them actually first flew after the LCA. So, outstanding record. Yes, military aviation has its own dynamics. We just saw the video. Since yesterday we are watching this. The aircraft is coming on finals. It's got its landing gear down, so it's coming on an approach. When you come and approach, the distance from the ground is less. So whatever has to happen, some technical failure, engine, whatever could have happened, the pilot had to, there's not enough time to restart at that time, and he is ejected. And very happy that, he is safe and minor injuries, but also nobody is injured on the ground. But I must mention, let's look at the aircraft itself. It has about 40 of them, as you said, are in service, but more than 50 have been produced. Some of them are being used for testing. More than 200 more will be inducting in a better variant 1A, which has already flown last year. So the aircraft has done international exercises, done various exercises in India. It's done air-to-air firing, it's done air-to-ground, multi-role, swing, wing capability has been shown recently, the Vayu Shakti, and it was right now flying, at an exercise. So outstanding record. Such things do happen. Yes, I must also mention the F-404 engine Gs is a tried, tested. It's flying on the F-18 variants. There are 4,000 of them on F-18 variants itself, and there are large numbers on many other, about 7-8 different other aircraft it's flying. So engine otherwise supposed to be very safe, but of course, even in a fully serviceable aircraft, something can go wrong, which will come out clearly in the court of inquiry. Incorrect for us to conjecture at this time, but only to say that it's a great aircraft, and we're looking forward to great years of LCA in the Indian Air Force.
Okay, thanks for that opening comment. Angad, same question to you. Obvious reasons why this particular accident has, drawn so much attention and, all the buzz on social media and beyond. How do you see this? When you heard about this crash, what was your first reaction and how are you reading it, Angad?
My first reaction, Shiv, was to predict exactly what you said. Yeah. That it's going to be, frankly, over-scrutinized, and people are going to sort of lose their minds a little bit over the fact that, it's happened to an LCA. And it's been this sort of painful push-pull saga with this aircraft for well over 20 years now. So it's only 23 years since it first flew. But, my instinctive reaction was to anticipate that sort of noise. But like the Air Marshal, I think it's it's premature to speculate on anything right now. And like your opening sequence said, that this is an inherently risky business. It could have been literally any other aircraft that went down on Tuesday, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. Right. A single engine aircraft, MiG-21 could, if it eats a bird at low altitude, it's not going to make the runway, and the pilot would punch out. And we wouldn't be discussing it, in this manner. So true. Yeah. I don't see this as any sort of reflection of the capabilities of the aircraft or its inherent safety. The Air Force has announced an investigation, and they're going to go through probably for better. Not for worse. They're going to go through this with a pretty fine-tooth comb, and they're going to look at anything that could have caused this, including upstream factors beyond just what caused the crash, and that'll go into the sort of big book of learning, as it were. In military circles, there's a saying that SOPs are written in blood. Yes. And we should be glad that this one wasn't. It will go into future learning, and the pilot's safe, and there were no casualties on the ground. So I think, as crashes go, it's probably the best outcome.
Best outcome. No casualties, pilot safe is an incredible outcome. There's no doubt about that. Marshal Chopra, taking off from what Angad said, obviously whenever a crash happens, it's very rare that there is footage of those final moments. In this particular case, there's this small little mobile phone clip, showing you what happened. I imagine from a investigation perspective, that's very, very valuable, because it's very rare to have, a visual element as far as what is happening. Here you can see the pilot ejecting, you can see the aircraft, you can see roughly what configuration it is in, the landing gear, etc. is down. Can you take us briefly, sir, through what an investigation actually entails? The forensic investigation, the interview with the pilots, etc. What are the steps that are taken to finally reach a conclusion? Because the reason why I want our viewers to know this is because there is this, apart from the scrutiny, there is this great hurry to speculate on what may have caused the crash based on very little, early information, sir.
Yeah, Shiv, see, nowadays we are lucky or whatever you may say. Social media is very active. Large number of people are taking pictures of approach in Delhi airport and in various other places. So you have a lot of people who are taking pictures. And we've seen many accidents, including the JF-17 in Pakistan, where the whole thing had been video recorded. So there is a lot of evidence, additional evidence, which comes very handy, as you rightly pointed out, that here is an aircraft on approach, it's going straight to the level, it is not in a maneuver, it's not spun into the ground, nothing like that has happened. So all that is very, very good. Secondly, big advantage is that the pilot is absolutely safe and normal, and he will be able to, by now, would have told a lot of information. And the third is that black box, the FDR, that is, would be safe because the large parts of the aircraft are looking visible, and therefore the FDR So actually what happens is immediately when an accident takes place, there is a flight safety directorate of the Air Force which gets into action. Immediately an advanced team of specialists who are specializing in aircraft investigation, they are sent immediately by air to the site. They quickly take charge of the materials on the ground, which have already been secured by the local police and the Air Force police, and they take pictures of everything. They take, some recordings they do with the eyewitnesses. They talk to a large number of people. So they quickly, build up evidence and information, because before the actual court of inquiry team gets established, which normally takes about 2 days, for them to come, somebody has already done a lot of homework on behalf of that, court of inquiry team. So a lot of information would already be known. If at all there was a problem with the engine, the pilot would have known. He would have had some indication. After all, he decided to eject in a straight and level flight. That means he obviously would know a lot about what's the state of the aircraft, and he would have told the initial investigation. But of course, there are hundreds of other parameters once you have to milk the FDR, etc. Then only can you finally establish the cause. And it's not only the cause, you have to then take calls on the remedial actions. And sometimes in the initial investigation, if you find that there's something critical for the rest of the fleet, you could then advise the Air Force to take necessary precautionary measures or do some checks on the other aircraft. So there is a process very well established all over the world, especially in Indian Air Force, ever since Indian Air Force was formed. So this is how the sequence of events will take place.
Angad, much has been made about the Tejas' safety record, which is of course a fact. 23 years of flawless flight since that first flight. 8 years since squadron service began. How do you read those numbers? This is a business where there's no room for sentiment. In your reporting, in your interactions, with the squadrons, what has the Tejas' safety record been like?
Shiv, I must mention to you that, it's you could be having just 4 aircraft and not had a single accident. They would have...
Marshal Chopra, I'll come right back to you. That question was for Angad. I'm coming right back to you. That question was for Angad,
Right.
I'm just coming to you right after that. Angad.
Shiv, in my unsentimental view, frankly, I think too much is being made of safety records of any aircraft. We opened this segment by saying that this is an inherently risky business. Some of the finest aircraft in the history of military aviation or aviation have suffered horrible accidents in their design and development. The fact that the Tejas didn't is I would say lucky, certainly. But it's not something we should be afraid of. I mean, that's the whole point of being on the cutting edge. Is you need to be pushing the envelope and you need to be taking, I grant you, calculated risks. But let me put it another way. If 10 years ago we'd had an LCA crash during supersonic testing, I personally wouldn't have been, too perturbed by that. It would have been an unfortunate cost paid in service of developing a national capacity.
Very, very interesting. Marshal Chopra, coming back to you, last round of questions to the both of you. Now an investigation will take place. The probe will go into all those details that you just listed out before a report is submitted, along with what I imagine are recommendations, if any, for the Air Force. But, I want to get into something a little deeper, because it's valuable to have someone like you who's been inside the cockpit, also investigated things. When a crash takes place, what happens in squadrons? What is the mood like in squadrons? In this particular case, like Angad said, and I agree with him, it was the best possible outcome. No casualties on the ground, the pilot is safe. But what happens in a squadron when a crash takes place?
Immediately when a crash takes place, the first thing is to find out if the pilot is safe. The flight commander takes charge of the situation. The CEO, CEO or the flight commander will get into the helicopter with the doctors, they'll go to the landing site, pick up the pilot, see everything is good. So first, another team will go and, of course, secure the aircraft area so that nobody touches the evidence, and so that the court of inquiry can happen smoothly. But in the squadron, once the pilot is safe, the family is informed. The family members of the CEO's wife and others will go down to the lady's house just to show that all is okay, your husband is fine, and he's just going to join back. often in the evening we would have a drink in the bar with this boy. If he's already joined back, good. If not, he is still in the hospital because there'll be some initial investigation. You will all get together, have some kind of a drink and say, what the hell, yeah, we are all right and we have to get back to flying. Normally, the aircraft will not be grounded. Next day, the squadron will fly absolutely normally. It's very important for our operational unit to quickly get back into the operational frame of mind. These things are part of our lives. We have lost very dear friends, postmates, squadron mates, and life still goes on. I remember the day I ejected, they came to the hospital because I had a little shoulder injury and the doctors wouldn't let me go to the squadron. So they brought a cake and they cut a cake. They made us cut a cake in the hospital while we were still lying down to say, okay, another birthday, another life. And we, go on and the boys outside open a bottle of champagne and that's sort of had fun outside. So this kind of, traditions are there, but we get back to action and that is the core issue, yes.
And the action never stops. That's the, that's the thing, on the day and maybe for a couple of days, there's a luxury of, doing this kind of thing. But, fighter pilots always have to be on duty. Angad, a final question before I let the both of you go. There is no doubt, the Lord knows that the Tejas program has been a troubled one. It's taken its time, but now it's been 8 years in service. You've always been a strong advocate of getting these aircraft out there, getting them into service and, then doing what you need to do with the aircraft, improving them, tweaking them, etc., etc. But getting that experience going is very, very important. And like you said, the best possible outcome. I want to ask you, as someone who spent a lot of time with pilots, with these aircraft, with these squadrons, given the history of trouble, the kind of suspicion that has existed between HAL and the Air Force, etc., concerning the Tejas, what has the Air Force and the pilots' experience been like with the Tejas? What do squadron pilots now say about the Tejas?
I mean, to put it in the most simple terms, I don't think anyone who's been operating MiG-21s and MiG-27s is going to complain about jumping into a Tejas. It's that simple. If you look at the two squadrons that are in service today, 45 and 18, that are flying the Tejas today, they come from MiG-21 and MiG-27 legacy. And for those guys, for those squadrons, it's a huge leap forward, the LCA. So it really is that simple.
I love that. Yeah.
To just follow on from Air Marshal Chopra's point, not only will the squadrons get back to work ops normal tomorrow or today, the CO will lead from the front and will fly the first sortie and so on. But I don't think it's lost on any of these commanders and squadrons that they are writing the book for this aircraft. So the learning value and the findings from this incident, these are things that are going to hold us as a force and as a developer, as a nation that develops military aircraft, in good stead down the line.
I'm going to end on that very, very positive note. Great takeaways. We've also learned a lot. I hope our viewers, many of whom had asked me to do a show like this to demystify and answer some of these questions, I hope you've taken away a great deal as well. Angad and Air Marshal Chopra, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and for taking my questions here on India Today. Now, India will now finally develop its own ambitious fifth-generation stealth fighter as well. The Tejas is one story, but something called the AMCA, that's the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, which is a stealth, futuristic fighter, is next on the table. And guess what? The government has just provided formal sanction to India's most ambitious air power effort. Take a look. India's Tejas may have just suffered its first ever crash after an unparalleled safety run. But that doesn't dampen India's air power plans one bit. With nearly 40 aircraft in service, 83 upgraded versions on order, and an order for another 97 in the pipeline, the age of the Tejas has only just begun. The bigger and more powerful Tejas Mark II is also making progress towards a potential order for 200 or more jets in the coming decade. But the week gone by has brought perhaps the biggest news in Indian military aviation in well over a decade. The long-delayed clearance of India's most ambitious combat aircraft concept. The Cabinet Committee on Security has sanctioned 15,000 crores to fund India's fifth-generation fighter aircraft project. It's called the AMCA, short for Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, the working title for India's under-development fifth-generation fighter. Like the Tejas, the AMCA is also homegrown, but it couldn't be a more different aircraft in every possible way. As a fifth-generation fighter, the AMCA will be a stealth aircraft that's difficult to detect by radar and other sensors by virtue of its shape and materials it is made of. It will sport advanced sensors and avionics of its own, carry smart internally held weapons, and have the ability to break the speed of sound without being a gas guzzler, among many other features. The first flight of the AMCA will take place at the end of this decade, about 5 years behind schedule.
The AMCA, the phase 1 with the G414 engines, should start flying in about 10 years, or should for the first flight will happen in 7 years, but the induction may take 10 years.
An attempt 5 years ago to push the AMCA forward as a public-private partnership failed to take off, with no private sector giant expressing interest in getting involved in too big a way. But with project sanction now, things will hopefully move forward fast. There is significant pressure to keep the AMCA program on track. China has developed and built over 200 J-20 fifth-generation fighters. And while their combat qualities remain the subject of debate, China is developing a second fifth-generation fighter, the FC-31. Fifth-generation fighter pioneers, the United States, already have large fleets of F-22 and F-35 jets in service. While Russia has begun using its own fifth-generation jet, the Sukhoi Su-57, in combat over Ukraine. India's 2019 airstrikes in Pakistan's Balakot confirm that offensive actions on enemy soil are a real and present mission for the Indian Air Force. And therefore having a stealth fighter like the AMCA can no longer be a debate. In a world in churn, the question now is, can India ensure the AMCA project stays on track, especially since India does have to develop it almost entirely on its own, given how classified and secret most of the associated technologies are? Will the AMCA deliver what future Indian pilots need for their future missions? And now for 6 p.m. Prime with Akshita, a big investigation after a week-long spotlight on Bengaluru's crippling water crisis. This is an expose of Bengaluru's water villains, the mafia that's been exploiting an unprecedented water scarcity in the city. This is an India Today special investigation with Akshita right after this break.
पता नहीं वो कौन लोग हैं, क्या हैं, सारी कानून व्यवस्था चरमरा जाएगी, चोरियां, डकैतियां, बलात्कार बढ़ेंगे हमारे देश के अंदर.
Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal predicting disruptive fallout of CAA, predicting flood of Pakistanis, rape, riots and dacoity.
बांग्लादेश से, पाकिस्तान से अगर झुग्गी लगा के आपके, पता नहीं वो कौन लोग हैं, क्या हैं, सारी कानून व्यवस्था चरमरा जाएगी, चोरियां, डकैतियां, बलात्कार बढ़ेंगे हमारे देश के अंदर, पूरी कानून व्यवस्था, और पता नहीं कैसे कैसे लोग आएंगे वहां पे, सुरक्षा व्यवस्था, हमारे देश की सुरक्षा व्यवस्था का क्या होगा, चारों तरफ दंगे फैल जाएंगे. ये क्यों लाए हैं कानून?
Kejriwal's CAA rape analogy made the BJP see red. It launched a tirade asking Kejriwal to stop painting Hindu and Sikh migrants as criminals. The Sikh migrants who fled Taliban atrocities in Afghanistan and Pakistan were upset too. Sikh refugees asked Kejriwal not to tag them as rapists and asserted that they can die for dignity of women. Team India, however, has been relentlessly training guns on the centre, calling CAA an anti-Muslim law. AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi too attacked CAA. Home Minister Amit Shah has rejected claims of bias and said India will not abandon persecuted minorities in its neighbourhood. Will the escalating CAA showdown dominate the political discourse in the run-up to 2024 polls? Bureau Report, India Today.
कि CAA को आप सिर्फ CAA से नहीं, CAA को आपको NPR और NRC से जोड़कर देखना जरूरी है। क्या अमित शाह पार्लियामेंट में मेरा नाम लेकर नहीं कहे थे कि ओवैसी जी NPR NRC भी आएगा? क्या अमित शाह कई टीवी इंटरव्यूज में नहीं कहा था कि NPR NRC आएगा जब CAB था? बाद में CAA वो एक्ट हो गया, वो जब CAB बिल था, जब उनका ऑन रिकॉर्ड इंटरव्यू है पार्लियामेंट में, उन्होंने कहा है। तो ये सब एक धुआं है और ये कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि असल इनका मकसद क्या है कि देश में NPR हो, NRC हो। अब मिसाल के तौर पर आसाम में जो NRC हुआ, सुप्रीम कोर्ट मॉनिटर्ड, 1600 करोड़ रुपये उस पर खर्चा किए गए, 50,000 गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉयज ने काम किया और 19 लाख लोगों को कहा गया कि भारत के शहरी नहीं है, नागरिक नहीं है। अब मैं फिर से कह रहा हूं कि उसमें 10 से 12 लाख हमारे हिंदू भाई बहन का नाम नहीं आए। वहां के मुख्यमंत्री ये कह चुके हैं कि उन 10-12 लाख हिंदू भाइयों बहनों को बगैर डॉक्यूमेंट के CAA के तहत उनको सिटीजनशिप मिल जाएगी। अब जो 1 से 1.5 लाख जिन मुसलमानों के जहां नाम नहीं आए, वो तो एक्ट में नहीं आएंगे CAA में, उनको तो फॉरेनर्स ट्रिब्यूनल जाना पड़ेगा। ये कौन सा इंसाफ है बताओ?
चाहे ममता बनर्जी हों, चाहे केजरीवाल हों, चाहे ओवैसी हों, सबके पेट में दर्द हो रहा है। सबकी दवा अलग अलग है, रोग भी अलग अलग है। जो लोग केजरीवाल कह रहे हैं पाकिस्तान के लोगों को नागरिकता दी जा रही है, पाकिस्तान के नहीं हैं, ये भारतवंशी हैं। शायद आप वोट के लालच में इन भारतवंशियों के दुर्दशा को आप नहीं समझ रहे हैं। हमें याद है कि पाकिस्तान से आए थे 4-5 साल पहले कुछ तीर्थ के नाम पे वीजा लेकर के, और उनका वीजा का समय खत्म हो गया था। पत्रकारों ने पूछा, मीडिया ने दिखाया है कि आपका आज खत्म होगा, आप जेल चले जाएंगे। उन्होंने कहा मैं क्यों नहीं जाऊंगा, ये बता देता हूं। वो फटे हुए टेंट में था, अपनी बेटी को निकाला। अब बेटी को निकालने के बाद कहा ये मेरी बेटी है, मैं इसे स्कूल नहीं भेजता। अगर मैं स्कूल भेज दूं तो ये घर वापस नहीं आएगी। क्या उन हिंदुओं को आप पाकिस्तानी कहते हैं? वो बेचारे तो शरणार्थी के रूप में हैं। इन शरणार्थियों को अगर भारत में स्थान नहीं मिलेगा तो कहां मिलेगा? अफगानिस्तान से जो सिख भाई आए उनको भारत में नहीं मिलेगा तो कहां मिलेगा शरण? ये ओवैसी साहब का दर्द अलग है, ममता बनर्जी और केजरीवाल का दर्द एक है।
I'm taking the same stand that I took in Parliament, both when they introduced the bill and when the debate on the bill happened in the Lok Sabha. And I can tell you, I consider this morally and constitutionally wrong. This is the first time that into the principle of citizenship, you are finding a law being brought in that actually discriminates by excluding people of one particular faith.
देखिए, मुझे लगता है कुछ लोग सोचते हैं कि वो कानून से और भारत के संविधान से ऊपर है। हम लोग संविधान से चलने वाले और संविधान से देश को चलाने वाले लोग हैं। हमारे लिए संविधान सर्वोपरि। पार्लियामेंट ने जिस कानून को पास किया उसको अक्षरशः लागू करना, इन लेटर एंड स्पिरिट लागू करना, वो हमने संकल्प लिया था, करके दिखाया है। और ये 70 साल तक को नहीं कर पाया। नेहरू जी के दिए हुए जख्म, जिसके कारण 45,000 लोगों की हत्याएं हुई जम्मू कश्मीर में। कांग्रेस दोषी है उसके लिए, नेहरू जी दोषी। उसको सुधारने का काम नरेंद्र मोदी जी की सरकार ने किया। आज कश्मीर में देखिए जी, क्या जागरूकता लोगों में आई है, क्या समृद्धि संपन्नता आई, खुशहाली आ रही है। सीएए के आने से उन लोगों के जीवन में बदलाव आएगा जिनको नागरिकता लेने के लिए 70 साल इंतजार करना पड़ा।
Co-powered by Green Lam Laminates, कुछ मेरा कुछ तुम्हारा। म्यूचुअल फंड्स सही है।
India's garden city is bone dry. Bengaluru parched, but who's guilty? Who's bleeding Bengaluru's water? India Today exposes how mafia loots and plunders. Water villains of Bengaluru, India Today's special investigation.
Good evening. You're watching 6 p.m. Prime here on India Today. I'm Akshita Nandagopal, and over the next 1 hour, we'll be getting you an India Today special investigation focused on the water woes of Namma Bengaluru. We're seeing an unprecedented water crisis playing out. Bengalurians are struggling right now to ensure that their daily water needs are taken care of. And amid that, a shocking exploitation will be exposed here on India Today. So stay with us as we'll get you that special report. Let's begin with the headlines. Big meltdown over CAA. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal triggers Rao claims CAA will spike crimes like rape and riots. BJP hits out, demands Kejriwal retract his statement. BJP's second list likely to be out today. India Today scoops Karnataka list for Bengaluru. Tejaswi Surya likely to fight from south. You've got Shobha Karanlaje from Bengaluru North. Pralhad Joshi may be fielded from Dharwad. Prime Minister Modi ramps up Mission South ahead of polls. Modi to tour 3 southern states from March 15th to 16th. In all 5 states over 5 days. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Stalin hits out. Says Prime Minister will come just before elections and spread lies. Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar speaks after SBI submits data on poll bonds. Says the poll panel will furnish all details on time. The mandated deadline by Supreme Court is 5 p.m. Friday for the Election Commission. Congress moves in for the woman vote, announces 5 Nari Nyay guarantees ahead of polls, includes 1 lakh annually to be provided for poor women and 50% quota in central government jobs. And BJP seals the deal in Bihar. Seat sharing deal finalized. Sources say JDU will get 16 seats, 4 likely for Chirag Paswan. Pashupati Paras, Jitan Ram Manji and Upendra Kushwaha may get 1 each. BJP will contest on 117. So stay tuned, in fact, for the Bengaluru water crisis investigative report by India Today. Before we get you that special report, let's begin by taking you through what the situation